Good morning. It's Wednesday, June 11th. That was California Governor Gavin Newsom responding to President Trump's deployment of over 4,000 National Guard and 700 active duty Marines to Los Angeles to quell protests of his immigration actions. We'll have more of the governor's remarks for you and President Trump's response, and we'll take your calls and get your thoughts on that. Republicans, call us on 202-748-8001. Democrats, 202-748-8000, and Independents, 202-748-8002. We have a line set aside for active and retired military members. Call us on 202-748-8003. You can also use that same line to text us your comments, include your first name and your city, state. You can also post your thoughts on social media. It's facebook.com/cspan and X at CSpanWJ. Welcome to today's Washington Journal. Let's start with the LA Times. Here's what they're reporting. Curfew enacted for downtown LA. ICE expands immigration raids. It says that LA Mayor Bass announced a curfew for downtown Los Angeles following 4 nights of sporadically chaotic protests. Also, ICE has expanded into rural communities following days of coordinated raids in urban areas of Los Angeles. And here is the front page of the Washington Times this morning with the headline, Newsom bid to evict troops rejected. The article says that a federal judge allowed President Trump at least 2 more days of free action to deploy troops to Los Angeles, putting off California's request for an immediate restraining order Tuesday as the city prepared for another round of clashes between anti-deportation protesters and law enforcement. The judge said Mr. Trump deserved a chance to answer California Governor Newsom's demands, and he has set a hearing for Thursday to review the legal arguments over the deployment, which grew to 4,000 National Guard as well as 700 active duty Marines. And let's take a look at what another portion of Governor Newsom's remarks from last night, calling Trump's law enforcement activities an authoritarian regime.
If some of us could be snatched off the streets without a warrant, based only on suspicion or skin color, then none of us are safe. Authoritarian regimes begin by targeting people who are least able to defend themselves, but they do not stop there. Trump and his loyalists, they thrive on division because it allows them to take more power and exert even more control. And by the way, Trump, he's not opposed to lawlessness and violence as long as it serves him. What more evidence do we need than January 6th? I ask everyone, take time, reflect on this perilous moment. A president who wants to be bound by no law or constitution, perpetuating a unified assault on American traditions. This is a president who in just over 140 days has fired government watchdogs that could hold him accountable for corruption and fraud. He's declared a war on culture, on history, on science, on knowledge itself. Databases, quite literally, are vanishing. He's delegitimizing news organizations, and he's assaulting the First Amendment. And the threat of defunding them, at threat, he's dictating what universities themselves can teach. He's targeting law firms and the judicial branch that are the foundations of an orderly and civil society. He's calling for a sitting governor to be arrested for no other reason than to, in his own words, for getting elected. And we all know this Saturday, he's ordering our American heroes, the United States military, and forcing them to put on a vulgar display to celebrate his birthday, just as other failed dictators have done in the past. Look, this isn't just about protests here in Los Angeles. When Donald Trump sought blanket authority to commandeer the National Guard, he made that order apply to every state in this nation. This is about all of us. This is about you. California may be first, but it clearly will not end here. Other states are next. Democracy is next. Democracy is under assault before our eyes. This moment we have feared has arrived.
Want to get your response to that? His full remarks are on our website, cspan.org. They run about 8 minutes if you'd like to take a look at that in its entirety. And President Trump has responded. He put this on Truth Social about a little over 10 minutes ago. He says the incompetent governor of California was unable to provide protection in a timely manner when our ICE officers, great patriots they are, were attacked by an out-of-control mob of agitators, troublemakers, and or insurrectionists. Make America great again. Let's go to calls now. Let's go to Samuel, South Pasadena, California, Republican. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for taking my call. I think that the governor, he's totally wrong, because when they were in there rioting and everything on the first and second day, they should have had the National Guard in there, and they should have had more police in there from different cities around. And, when they were start burning up the town and everything and looting and everything, they should have put down a curfew and all that. They didn't do it. Mayor Batts and the governor of California, let me tell you something, man, they have a big problem on their hands. And I'm glad that President Trump put all those National Guard and the United States Marines in there to protect those federal buildings, because if he didn't, they would have went in there and started burning everything in there.
So, Samuel, you're in South Pasadena. How far are you from the protests?
We're about maybe 5-6 miles away.
Okay, and so does the curfew apply to you?
No, it don't.
Okay.
Just in the areas where they were looting and everything, and they were causing a lot of havoc in there. And, that was terrible how they were throwing those cement boulders and rocks down the freeway, hitting those cars and everything. This was a terrible riot down here.
And Samuel,
everybody.
Sorry,
Yes,
just one more question. How are you following the news? Are you watching like national cable news, or are you watching your local LA broadcasts?
Yeah, I'm watching Spectrum News, the local, and I'm watching cable, Fox News, and I'm watching CNN. I'm watching them all and everything. And let me tell you something. Fox News is telling the truth. All the other stations, they're not telling the truth. They're saying that 95% of the people were protesting, and then 5% were causing a lot of trouble, lighting fires and all that. You got to be kidding me! And now, when Gavin Newsom put the law down, that he put a TRO down, that he didn't want those National Guard or the Marines here, and the federal judge heard, he says, "No way! I was watching it. I've seen what was going on. We need those people here."
All right, Samuel. And here's Alan in Brooklyn, New York, Democrat. Good morning, Alan.
Good morning, and thank you so much for the opportunity. I have the opportunity also to tune into your station about half an hour before this program, where they had a replay of President Trump speaking at Fort Bragg and stirring up the troops to be ready for a mission in Los Angeles that he very badly distorted. And it was really kind of frightening to listen to the rhetoric. I'd seen the speech by Governor Newsom last night and also your preview this morning, and the contrast is quite jarring. Trump was appealing to these troops on the basis of a supposed invasion of our country by a foreign power. And I know that when Hegseth was before the Congress the other day, and one of the congressmen asked him which of the 3 legal bases that would authorize you to bring Marines onto the scene here to support federalized National Guard, which of those do you believe applies here? And all 3 of them clearly did not apply. And Hegseth had the nerve, instead of being specific, to say that all 3 applied, including an alleged invasion by a foreign power. If the troops are going to be so lied to, what freedom are we defending here? We supposedly defeated fascism in Germany, and during the president's speech yesterday, or the other day in Fort Bragg, he was praising heroes of all of our wars going back from the Revolutionary through Vietnam and Iraq, and totally ignored the context that the war in Europe was not just against Germans and Japanese. It was against fascism. It was against lies. It was against the ability to propagandize the populations. He was focusing on blood over national pride in our tradition of freedom and diversity. He was emphasizing individual descendants of war heroes who were there. And then after mentioning the names of each of them, he was again stressing, we have great genes, we have great blood. He mentioned the hero of Sergeant York, and he focused on him not just being a Tennessee hero, but a Tennessee Christian hero. So here he is praising the wars we've won in the past for supposedly American values and turning it into a celebration of ethnicity and religion and untruth. And it was just frightening. He did not once mention that he had the opportunity to defend the Capitol of the United States from rioters on January 6th. And he not only refused to bring in National Guard for hours, but then praised the rioters and then pardoned those who had been convicted. And here he is claiming we need to come into Los Angeles.
All right, Alan, let's take a look at a portion of the president's speech from yesterday at Fort Bragg that Alan was talking about.
I want to applaud the courage and the strength of the incredible troops who are right now standing guard to protect federal property and personnel and uphold the supremacy of federal law. That's what they're doing. They're protecting our ICE agents. They're protecting the police in Los Angeles. The head of the police in Los Angeles, a good man, I hear a good man, but he was actually saying we really did need this help. It had gotten away from them. It had long gotten away. And we gave it to them. Not only are these service members defending the honest citizens of California, they're also defending our republic itself. And they are heroes. They're in there, they're heroes. They're fighting for us. They're stopping an invasion just like you'd stop an invasion. The big difference is most of the time when you stop an invasion, they're wearing a uniform. In many ways, it's tougher when they're not wearing a uniform because you don't know exactly who they are. In Los Angeles, the governor of California, the mayor of Los Angeles, they're incompetent, and they paid troublemakers, agitators, and insurrectionists. They're engaged in this willful attempt to nullify federal law and aid the occupation of the city by criminal invaders. That's what it is. They're invaders, no different.
That was the president from yesterday at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. And here is Sean in Columbus, Ohio, Independent Line. Hi, Sean.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for taking my call. In regards to Governor Newsom's words, I think that he's dealing with a lot of facts when he's talking about examples of the president's disruptive leadership. I know that both sides of the politician spectrum like to, aggrandize things, but specifically yesterday when Harriet Hageman was on, she was giving disinformation to a caller when they asked why the president didn't call the National Guard in for D.C. during January 6th. The fact is the president is in charge of the National Guard of D.C., and she pushed it back on the mayor and the Speaker of the House, and that just wasn't true. So, it's hard to consider things when they're not factual. And all the examples that Governor Newsom gave are examples of what the president is currently obstructing, destroying. So those are my thoughts on.
All right, Sean, here's Bradley in Clear Fork, West Virginia, Republican. Hi, Bradley.
Yeah, good morning. The guy in New York and the guy in Ohio used to live in Ohio. Get a suitcase, pack it up, and get out of the United States because you're not a true blue American. Listen, we don't need these people running the border. We don't need all this hectic stuff going on and burning stuff. Wake up. This morning I was on channel NBC before I got on Fox or C-SPAN, and Savannah made a comment that Trump was making a parade for his birthday. Well, guess what? It's a military anniversary, not necessarily his birthday. But what does the Democrats have to do? Blow it all out of proportion. People like the guy in New York, people like the boy or kid in Ohio there, they need to get their suitcase, like saying, pack it up. And, you know, these people coming in the United States illegal needs to go back. Come to the United States with your paperwork, your green card, and all these people raising Cain about them, picking strawberries and all this stuff. They're here. A lot of them are here with green cards. You've got people to do this. We don't need people in here illegal, raping and killing. The guy out in New York and Ohio, if he had a sister or mother and got raped and killed.
All right, Bradley, got that. And he did mention the parade. That is set to happen this Saturday. We will have coverage of that here on C-SPAN. It will get underway. Our live coverage begins at 6 p.m. Eastern, and the parade itself begins at 6:30 p.m., followed by an enlistment and re-enlistment ceremony attended by President Trump. And the evening will end with a parachute demonstration by the Army's Golden Knights, a concert, and fireworks. That's all live starting at 6 p.m. right here on C-SPAN. If you'd like to take a look at that. This is Mark in Ponca City, Oklahoma, Democrat. Good morning, Mark.
Yes, I just want to say that the burning of the American flag and stuff is real disrespectful. And these people who are taking and doing it and flying the Mexican flag and stuff, if they're that loyal to Mexico, take Trump up on his $1,000 deal and get a plane ticket or so and go back to Mexico or whatever country they come from. But I think Congress and the House of Representatives needs to stand up to Trump and slow him down, because he keeps sending all these people that these other countries don't want to other countries to house forever, literally, for being here illegally and spending all that money. And I'd like to know how much that money is that Trump is spending, and we're supposed to be trying to save money and everything, and the Veterans Parade and stuff. And I think that, like the Russian president and stuff, Trump looks up to him.
All right, Mark. And regarding costs, this is the AP reporting Los Angeles deployment to cost at least $134 million in last 60 days. That's according to the Pentagon. And Secretary Hegseth was in front of the House subcommittee hearing appropriations for defense, where California Representative Pete Aguilar questioned him about the cost and President Trump's authority to deploy those troops.
What is the estimated cost of the deployment for the Guard and the Marines to L.A., and where's this funding coming from? Will it be coming from quality of life programs that affect our service members or our families? If you want to wait till I finish.
Before I hand it to
such as updates, housing and barracks.
Before I hand it to Bryn, the insinuation that we're pulling money from housing and barracks in order to fund this is disingenuous and incorrect.
I'm just asking.
Bryn can give you the numbers. Absolutely.
So the current estimated cost is $134 million, which is largely just TDY costs, travel, housing, food, etc.
Oh, where's it coming from? That's the cost, but where's it coming from?
Out of their O&M accounts.
With the most recent deployment of the Marines, Mr. Secretary, what's the justification for using the military for civilian law enforcement purposes in L.A.? Why are you sending war fighters to cities to interact with civilians?
Every American citizen deserves to live in a community that's safe, and ICE agents need to be able to do their job. They're being attacked for doing their job, which is deporting illegal criminals. That should happen in any city, Minneapolis or Los Angeles. And if they're attacked, that's lawless, and President Trump believes in law and order. So he has every authority, and he has done mobilizing National Guard or active duty troops under U.S. code to protect federal agents in their job, which is exactly what we're doing, and we're proud to do it. We're proud to do it.
10 U.S.C. of the U.S. Code 12406 as a legal basis that the President used cites 3 examples and circumstances for the Guard: invasion by a foreign nation, rebellion or dangerous rebellion against the authority of the government of the United States, or the President is unable with regular forces to execute the laws of the United States. Which authority is triggered here to justify the use?
I don't know. You just read it yourself, and people can listen themselves, but it sounds like all 3 to me. If you've got millions of illegals and you don't know where they're coming from, they're waving flags from foreign countries and assaulting police officers and law enforcement officers, that's the problem.
The laws of the United States?
No, the governor of California is unable to execute the laws of the United States. The governor of the California has failed to protect his people, along with the mayor of Los Angeles, and so President Trump has said he will protect our agents, and our Guard and Marines are proud to do it.
The law also says, Mr. Secretary, that the orders for these purposes shall be issued through governors of the states.
You and I both know that President Trump has all the authorities necessary, and thankfully he's willing to do it.
And this is also from the Associated Press. School graduations in Los Angeles have added security over fears of ICE actions. It says the ceremonies, which number over 100 between Monday and Tuesday alone, included a beefed-up presence of school police, quote, to intervene and interfere with any federal agency who may want to take action during these joyous times. That's a quote from the superintendent of Los Angeles School District. And this is Rob in Port Crane, New York, Independent Line. Hi, Rob.
Good morning. This is exactly what I voted for. If there were 20 million illegal aliens here, and that's what they're called, illegal aliens, they need to leave. I saw them also waving Mexican flags and burning American flags, and I totally agree with Pete Hegseth. If they're going to burn U.S. flags, they don't need to be here. And as far as what's-his-face goes there, the governor of California, he needs to be locked up. Tom Homan should lock him up, Karen Bass, all the rest of these politicians, these Democrats, then invite these people here in our country. This is an invasion. And I live in New York, like you said, and we are one of the worst states. We're right there with California. We have a governor who does not give a crap about the taxpayers and the citizens that live here. She invited this invasion. So, C-SPAN, you guys can get off your high horse because you guys are on the side.
Joe in West Covina, California, Republican Line. Hi, Joe.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for taking my call. I'm a first-time caller. I'm a registered Republican, and I consider myself an American, if we can all just get to declare that we're American. Now, you had a first caller calling from Pasadena, which I'm just as close as he is to this area, and I will tell you, folks, people that are calling in from around the country who aren't here, including President Trump, who's 2,000 miles away, does not know the demographics of our area. It is a small area that ends at the 10 freeway going into the area where it's a small area where there's more homeless people than there are protesters at Union Station. It was unnecessary for them to call in the National Guard to have this taken care of. This could have been handled by the LAPD when they have concerts and different things. This all gets handled. And there are some bad people out there running around blowing stuff up or shooting off fireworks or doing whatever it is. But at the same time, the people that are burning the flags are Americans. They aren't Mexican people. You can fly an American flag and a Mexican flag as long as the American flag is above the Mexican flag. That's legal. I am just appalled at the way that this is being handled. And the reason I think this is being handled this way is that they want you to detract from what is going on in this country right now, that he was told that he was in the Epstein files. And I just want to get this out because I don't know, I'm not watching TV if you got your finger on the button on me already. But let me tell you guys, if you go to the ports around here, which gets all your stuff, your food, your medications, on those dollar stores across Oklahoma, and all these people you were calling in, they are empty. There are no ships. There are no ships coming. And in the next few months, you are going to find out what exactly is going on in this country. And it's too late. They were just making up for COVID after a couple of years, people. And you're just not looking. You're just not watching. And you're getting wagged like a dog, and they're wagging their hand, and you're looking over here, but you're not looking at what's really going on.
Got it, Joe. Let's hear from another portion of Governor Newsom's speech from last night, accusing President Trump of heightening the unrest in L.A. by calling up those troops.
Thanks to our law enforcement officers and the majority of Angelenos who protested peacefully, the situation was winding down and was concentrated in just a few square blocks downtown. But that's not what Donald Trump wanted. He again chose escalation. He chose more force. He chose theatrics over public safety. He federalized another 2,000 Guard members. He deployed more than 700 active U.S. Marines. These are the men and women trained for foreign combat, not domestic law enforcement. We honor their service. We honor their bravery. But we do not want our streets militarized by our own armed forces. Not in L.A., not in California, not anywhere. We're seeing unmarked cars, unmarked cars in school parking lots, kids afraid of attending their own graduation. Trump is pulling a military dragnet all across Los Angeles, well beyond his stated intent to just go after violent and serious criminals. His agents are arresting dishwashers, gardeners, day laborers, and seamstresses. That's just weakness masquerading as strength.
And back to the phones to Roberta, Decatur, Georgia, Democrat. What do you think, Roberta?
Yeah, I think Gavin Newsom was right on, and what he was saying, he was telling the truth. And for people out there who want to say that in regards to Trump and how he Trump was standing up and saying how he has to protect our police officers in California. I think about January 6th. I don't even think he even contacted the family members of those police officers who were injured and later died regarding what happened on that day. So you can't have both. You can't have, we only protect when when something is done on his behalf to police officers. So you can't have it both ways. And also, I really believe that this is a distraction. Trump wants to talk about, wants you to look over here, wants you to look down on a certain segment of the population, while on this over here, we're picking your pockets and stealing from you. So keep looking over here, people. Furthermore, California was taken from Mexico by the United States during the Mexican-American War. So if you're here and you're from other countries and you want to fly your flag, that's fine. I don't believe in burning the United States flag, nor do I believe in looting or defacing buildings. But you can't have it both ways. You can't say you can deface the Capitol on January 6th and defecate and urinate and try to harm or hang our vice president on one hand, then on the other hand want to say something different when it comes to a blue state or a Democrat-led state. So, yeah.
Okay, Roberta. Let's talk to Steve, York, Pennsylvania, Independent Line. Hi, Steve.
Hi, how you doing?
Good.
One of the things is the Constitution says invasion. If you look at it, I have several of them. But this whole thing would never occurred if people were coming into this country legally, the way they're supposed to. The illegal situations got to a point where we're paying them money, we're taking care of their health care and all this, yet we ourselves, the government ourselves, cannot even take care of our own people. You have to take care of these people coming in illegally. And some of them even had Social Security cards. They came into motels and hotels and completely illegals now, destroyed the whole darn building inside. And what I saw yesterday on the National Desk was looting. There's nothing wrong with protesting, not at all. But do it legally, not destroy property, which the taxpayers of California or any other state this is going to eventually continue to happen, we have to pay for the bill. We have to pay for the bill. The illegals should never have came in. The president of the United States at that time should have automatically stopped it, because we are supposed to be a republic of law and order, laws. And those laws are supposed to be enforced. They have not been enforced.
All right, Steve. Well, let's take a look at President Trump in the Oval Office yesterday talking about the potential invoking of the Insurrection Act.
Mr. President, will you invoke the Insurrection Act to deal with the situation in California?
If there's an insurrection, I would certainly invoke it. We'll see. But I can tell you last night was terrible. The night before that was terrible. We have, as you've seen, it was on most of your networks, people with big, heavy hammers pounding the concrete and pounding curbs, pounding it, breaking up all, and handing these big chunks of concrete to people. and they were taking that concrete, going up on bridges and dropping it into the roof of a car. They were throwing it at our police. They were throwing it at our soldiers that are there. And we got it stopped, and we have them in custody right now. Look, if we didn't get involved, right now, Los Angeles would be burning, just like it was burning a number of months ago with all the houses that were lost. Los Angeles right now would be on fire, and we have it in great shape and not playing around.
How will you determine whether or not there is an insurrection?
Well, you'll take a look at what's happening. I mean, I could tell you there were certain areas of Los Angeles that you could have called it an insurrection. It was terrible.
And this is the Associated Press with the headline, Trump calls L.A., quote, a trash heap as he promises to liberate it from criminals. That's from his speech at Fort Bragg yesterday. And here is Bill in Cleveland, Ohio, Republican. Hi, Bill. Good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, this is just crazy. I mean, Los Angeles historically, is Hispanic, but it's also entrenched with cartels, drugs, human trafficking, and the people that are in these streets, I don't know what they think. They can just take over highways and everything. They're throwing rocks, fireworks. Someone delivered face shields or something to them. It's not a grassroots effort. This is paid for by I don't know who's paying for it, but it's dangerous. It reminds me of Minneapolis, or in Minnesota when it was burning like that, and nobody really did anything. You have to shut it down right away, and it's beyond me how this is allowed to happen. I don't know what to say about it other than, there has to be rule of law. This is how people get hurt and killed. So something's got to be done.
Got it, Bill. Here's Betty in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, Democrat. Hi, Betty.
Hi, good morning.
Morning.
Thank you for having me. Yes, I truly believe that Governor Newsom hit it right on the head. He came out and he said exactly what Trump is trying to do. Incite people, distract us so we look at this area and we don't really see what's going on. The ICE, I can't even call them police, raiding like a Home Depot parking lot. How are they determining who is legal and illegal? They don't have the papers, but I will tell you, they have the color of a person's skin. And that's what they are doing. They're trying to say anybody that doesn't look like us, a white Caucasian, has to go one way or another. And it's just, I'm 83 years old. I just cannot believe how people are turning a blind eye. Now, Saturday, he has already warned us that if we protest, there will be consequences. So what does that mean coming from a president? We can no longer protest legally? That if even we are in a crowd holding up a sign where we can be attacked by the U.S. government? I don't know, people, but when you take bits and pieces of what's happening to us and turning a blind eye, in a few months, if that budget is signed, we are all going to be really in big trouble.
Well, Betty, Senator Chuck Schumer on the Senate floor yesterday made that point of silencing protesters. Here's what he said.
His order to deploy the National Guard and Marines, our own troops on Americans, is not just outrageous and provocative. It's a dangerous authoritarian overreach that threatens the very fabric of our democracy. This isn't leadership, it's provocation. To be very clear, violent protest is not the answer for achieving the work of justice. Full stop. Protest must remain peaceful, and law and order must be maintained. Though let me emphasize Deploying federalized troops without a state's consent hasn't happened in over 60 years, and when it did, it was to protect civil rights heroes marching for justice in Selma, Alabama. That moment was about progress. This one is about power and intimidation. We must all stand up and say loud and clear, America will not be bullied into submission by a president who confuses strength with force and democracy with domination. Americans don't deserve more fear, more division, more chaos. The president is using the military not to protect the people, but to silence them. He is playing politics with the lives of our troops and the safety of our citizens. It's shameful, it's unlawful, it's deeply un-American. Once again, President Trump is choosing chaos over competence and division over democracy. We must all stand up and say loud and clear, America will not be bullied into submission by a president who confuses strength with force and democracy with domination. The only consequence of Donald Trump's orders sending troops to Los Angeles is chaos, and Americans don't like it.
And back to the calls now to Patricia in Texas Independent Line. Good morning.
Good morning. I really prayed before I came on here this morning because this country really is in bad shape. I'm listening to everyone talk, and there's so much division. But as far as the governor of California, he really spoke the truth. You know, my husband is a former Marine, and he actively fought in Desert Storm and Afghanistan. And he didn't like the Marines being deployed out. He said this isn't right. And then as far as ISIS go, you know, January 6th, Trump either has the wrong definition or he doesn't understand what insurrection means. We win insurrection. But with the division happening here in America, you got people saying it wasn't. And with that being said, I feel personally, the way these people are attacking the ISIS people and they have the rhetoric in their heart, and to me, I'm going to just say, just hatred from being racist, I believe some of those people that were pardoned on January 6th are being a part of ISIS. I don't believe Trump does anything for free. So with that being said, those people were pardoned. And I really believe a lot of those people are a part of ISIS.
All right. And here's Sean in Irvine, California, Republican. Good morning.
Yes, good morning. Yeah, I mean, I'm about 45 miles removed from what's happening from there, south of there. And, you know, the thing that, I don't know, I've been following stuff for a while, and, you know, you go back to 5 years ago, you know, I mean, we know how people aren't mentally, you know, all there nowadays. And, but I don't know, I'm starting to listen to, you know, both sides here, and it's kind of, you know, it's like, it's basically, you've heard the term, you know, eye for an eye, you know, it's like, you know, going back to the fires we had here. And I think a lot of people that are in politics in California knew that fire was going to happen, but they didn't do anything about it. And I think California is really, it's kind of scary, to be honest with you. And I've even considered moving out of here to Arizona or something like that. But, you know, I just try to keep to myself, and, you know,
So, Sean, as far as the deployment of troops, are you in favor of that? I know you're on the Republican line. Did you vote for Governor Newsom?
No, I'm not. Well, I'm kind of neutral about the deployment of the troops, but I think when you have a situation that is so urgent, that's the reason why he did it. I think that's the reason why he did it, is because the urgency of it, you know. I don't know. I mean, you can't just hire a bunch of police officers and have them go through training in a short amount of time and be able to be on duty in public and stuff like that. So I think it was more a case of urgency, but I don't know. I mean.
All right. We got that. And Bill is on the military line from Coalport, Pennsylvania. Hi, Bill.
Good morning, Miss Mimi.
Morning.
Hey, yeah, thanks for taking my call. I have a couple things I'd like to talk about. Governor Newsom, he seems to not quite tell the truth. I'm one of those old people that believes in an old Yiddish saying, a half-truth is a whole lie. And I believe pretty much that's where he comes from. He's a true politician. And I think the reason for the Guard being deployed, and maybe the Marines, is the inaction of him and Miss Bass, Mayor Bass, with the fires from last year, and the Minneapolis riots where things burned for weeks before anybody did anything. And as far as the parade, I have forefathers that were in the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, and all the other wars of this country. We're simply just honoring my forefathers with this parade and everyone else's forefathers that have fought and died for this country.
Okay. And we'll be covering that bill if you'd like to watch it on TV, starting at 6 p.m. here on C-SPAN. And here is Aaron in Michigan, Independent Line. Hi, Aaron.
Hi. How you doing, Amy?
Good.
Thanks for taking my call. Yeah, I was just hearing a woman a couple of callers ago about Gavin Newsom on the Democrat line. She hit it right on the head. He has the authority of all those National Guard troops in and not Donald Trump. I've also been hearing it.
So, Aaron, your line is breaking up. If you don't mind just giving us a call right back, and we'll try to get you in, if not now, in open forum. Here's Stephen in Kentucky, Democrat. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Good.
I want to. That's good to hear. I want to start out by saying that I'm an American first, and I also happen to be a Democrat second. I think many of us are really forgetting about that. Now, I'm going to talk turkey here because I just heard that military man have the gall to say that, talk about this, complimentary about this military parade. The fact is Donald Trump did not serve in the war. He has called military people losers and suckers, number one. Number two, another thing we need to consider here. Trump, who is he to decide who can actually, who is he to decide who gets to stay and who gets to go, considering the fact that his family is German and Scottish, his wife came here from Slovenia, his vice president's family came here from Ireland and Scotland, and Yusha Vance is Indian. I mean, so if we're going to be consistent about this immigration idea, let's be consistent, and let's also talk about something else. How on earth is him going and staging these raids helping this situation? I don't hear any reform from this man. We're not talking about Cuba. We're not talking about Mexico. We're not talking about Cuba or Canada. We're talking about Mexico only. Number two, where is the penalties, strict legal penalties against these titans of industry that are exploiting these undocumented laborers for their own gain? Where is the emphasis on possibly the bureaucratic red tape in these elected officials trying to educate their constituents about the worker visa program? Maybe that's part of this problem, too. We're talking about undocumented who have been here for years and who have contributed to the fabric of this country. They're not criminal per se. The criminals are sent back. And I want to also say something else here, too. You know, Donald Trump talks about how he plays the mob boss. He wants to get up there talking about how he's fighting crime. Really, he's the premier criminal right now. He wants everybody to kiss his ring. Quite frankly, we all have something he can kiss, quite frankly.
All right, Stephen, and this is Dennis in Tunnel Hill, Georgia, Independent Line. Good morning, Dennis.
Well, that was scary there. That lady needs some medication. Hey, I just wanted to bring up a couple things. I was raised in Paramount, California. Actually went to junior high there, and then I moved over to Southgate, graduated there. Anyway, while I was there, I did notice that most of the Mexican people that were among us, they didn't like the people that were coming across illegal, even back then. So I don't know, things may have changed because I moved away from there back in the 70s. But also, I just wanted to bring up something about Gavin Newsom, because when you hear him talk, you need to think everything he says is like a fairy tale, because he actually owns a bunch of wineries that produce more CO2 than all the cows, chickens, and pigs in the whole state of Texas. I mean, that's how bad the CO2 is from fermentating wine grapes. Anyway, I just figured when you hear anything from Gavin Newsom, you need to remind you of that.
Okay. And here's Ray, Seminole, Florida, Democrat. Hi, Ray.
Hey, how you doing? I just have a couple quick things. One, I was a corporate chef out of California, had about 50 restaurants right inside L.A., and we had it was called INS back then, because I was a chef back in the late 90s, early 2000s. A place called Otay Mesa. It's pretty close to the San Diego border. I get a call one day. INS is there. They swooped up 50 people. I had to go down with a couple of executives, close the restaurant, do rehiring and everything else. So this isn't a new phenomenon. If everyone thinks it is, it's not. The second thing is you got to quell these riots. You can call them whatever the heck you want, but they may start, like Gavin Newsom said, in a couple of blocks. But guess what? We saw what happened in 2020. I have a friend, one of my best friends in Atlanta, is a police officer, frontline guy, and he told me one of the saddest stories I ever heard. He said, Ray, I had to build a shower downstairs because I had a newborn baby and wife. I said, I couldn't walk into my house and kiss my wife and baby. I had to go downstairs, take my equipment off, shower, and go back and kiss my family because people are whipping piss and really nasty, nasty things at them. So if you don't stop it, then all of a sudden it's going to get out of control. And as far as the military, my feeling on that is they should protect all the federal property. If there's any buildings, they are trained for that. So Newsom has no idea. We protect embassies. We protect all sorts of buildings. So that's really all.
Got it. And here's the Associated Press saying that protests have spread to other cities. It says from Seattle to Austin and Washington, D.C., marchers have chanted slogans, carried signs against the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency, that's ICE, and snarled traffic through downtown avenues and outside federal offices. While many were peaceful, some have resulted in clashes with law enforcement as officers made arrests and used chemical irritants to disperse crowds. And here's Margie in Meadville, Pennsylvania, Republican.
Good morning.
Morning.
I wanted to say that 10 years ago, when I was 77, a little more spry than I am now, I worked for the census, and we had a little bit of studying to do, and we learned that everyone is counted, not just citizens. So I think that Governor Newsom and other Democrats are using the dislike of ICE as a ploy just to make sure that illegals don't go back, because they want the count number to be up to increase their representation. They're using their own people to fire them up to dislike ICE, but I don't feel that that's the real thing. And brings me to suggest a program for C-SPAN to, it's not near an election, but it's kind of timely right now, to have a couple guests on maybe discussing the fact that of why everybody is counted, not just citizens. So I just wanted to add that in.
All right, Margie, thank you for that suggestion. Here's Guy in Stigler, Oklahoma, on the military line.
Good morning, Mimi. How are you today?
Good.
Good. You look very nice. I like that beige color. Mimi, I'd like to give the definition first of an insurrection. An insurrection, by definition, is an armed group or armed coup which is trying to overthrow the government. What we're seeing in California, and I'm from California, born in Pasadena, grew up in Long Beach. And I left California in 2002 because the crime was so out of control back then, I couldn't imagine what it's like now. But anyway, what we're seeing are protests. They're not insurrections. And going back to J6, that was a protest. Everybody keeps calling it an insurrection. They were not trying to overthrow the government. They were trying to stop the certification of the election. and to send it back to the states for review, where all of these, you call it whatever you want to call it. The Democrats called it strange occurrences, unseen events, about the election results in certain states. So January 6th was not an insurrection. And also, there's all these people that keep saying that Trump did not call out the National Guard for January 6th. He did. And Nancy Pelosi and Muriel Bowser of Washington, D.C. refused to let those troops come in to quell the protest. And going back to California, there was a program on 2020 about 2 weeks ago. It showed California, Long Beach, the boardwalk, the pier. It was a Friday afternoon, and it was empty. The crime is so bad in California now, people are afraid to come out and walk on the boardwalk or walk on the streets. That's how bad the crime is. The news doesn't cover it, but it was a great, segment on 2020 about how bad the crime is. And people, they come home from work, they go in their houses, they have their groceries delivered because the crime is so bad, they're afraid to get out in public.
So, Guy, since you mentioned former Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, she was speaking yesterday, and she did bring up January 6th. So let's hear what she said.
In a bipartisan way, on January 6th, with violence against the Constitution, against the Congress, and against the United States Capitol, we begged the President of the United States to send in the National Guard. He would not do it. Not only would he not do it, when law enforcement people were being harmed, some later died, he would not send it in when an instigation that an insurrection that he incited was causing damage to those assigned to protect the Capitol and the Constitution that day, to accept the results of the Electoral College. That day, he didn't do it. He forgave those people. Now his people want to raise money for them, and yet, in a contra-constitutional way, he has sent the National Guard into California. Something is very wrong with this picture. Inconsistent in his actions, contrary to his own statement that he couldn't, of a year ago, that he couldn't send anyone in without the governor's consent, any place, and in violation of the Constitution.
That's Representative Nancy Pelosi of California, and this is Deidre in Springfield, Missouri, Democrat.
Yes, good morning.
Morning.
I just want to remind everyone that the Republicans are the one that loaded the immigrants up on buses. They put them on planes. They flew them all over the United States, and way too many of them got away from the border. They should have been kept there and documented and got their paperwork ready so they could go to work. And as far as him sending troops to California, it's just a distraction to keep people from thinking about what they need to be thinking about. California is the fourth largest economy in the world. They have all the resources there they need to do anything that's needed to do for the people. And holding a sign is not against the law. If he's looking for criminals, go to the courthouses, look up who they've drug in, who's got charges, and that's who they need to be rounding up right now, period.
And here's John in Esopus, New York, Independent Line. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. The previous caller, how long would it take your staff to look up? Was it the Republicans that sent all these people in planes and buses and distributed them across the United States? You know that's phony and fake. You should point that out. The other thing is these protests down there, and where is it? In L.A. and I guess they're spreading out. They were in Michigan and New York and stuff. And so they have every right to go out there and express their First Amendment rights. Well, guess what? I expressed my First Amendment rights in the past election. That's how I passed my First Amendment rights. I voted for somebody that I felt comfortable with, and I agreed with they're running for president, and other cabinet members were running, and I heard their arguments on TV. I had a chance to listen to what they were proposing, and my First Amendment right says I picked this person, and the person I picked is my own personal. It's not nobody's business, but I voted, and you know what? So you have a First Amendment right to vote for somebody you want, and if you lose, you don't go out there and march through the streets and fire, shoot commercial fireworks at the police or throw rocks and bricks at everybody and disrupt everything in the city and loot and rob and burn, and then say, "Oh, we're just out there, giving our First Amendment rights. We have that to go out there and do that." No, when's the last time you saw a bunch of Republicans go out there and march because they lost an election or something like that? The only thing is it was that January 6th thing. What you say? How many people died? You have the medical documents of how many people died on January 6th. There was only one person that died that was shot. And you will not tell the truth. The liberal media will not tell the truth. They will perpetuate.
All right, John, and this is Mike in Strongsville, Ohio, Republican line. Good morning, Mike.
Yeah, good morning. Hi, how you doing? I have to agree with that guy. I hate to tell you that, and I know you don't want to hear it, but the truth is here, if it happened in anybody's state, I don't know what world everybody lives in, but why? If you see all this stuff happening, why wouldn't you want? You would hope God would show up to the party. What's the big deal about them bringing the military in to protect you? What right do they have shooting stuff and doing? I seen it on TV. Everybody's seen it on TV. To sit there and pretend it didn't happen really makes you sound stupid when you sit there and try to spin it. We know the facts. The facts are, and then somebody says, who's Donald Trump? Donald Trump's the president. Get with the program. If you don't like him, then don't vote for him. 3/4 of Americans voted for Donald Trump. I guess there's nothing you can do about it.
Charles in Mooresville, North Carolina, on the line for military. Good morning, Charles.
Good morning. Hey, I took the oath 1972 to defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. These are domestic, okay? All these people getting on there, so bleeding heart liberals, they're wrong, and they won't admit it. You ever met somebody who won't admit that they're wrong about things? Gavin Newsom is just totally connected to Nancy Pelosi. He's her nephew. Okay? He's the worst governor that ever was. I mean, the best governor California ever had was Ronald Reagan. And one of the best presidents we ever had was Ronald Reagan. Now, I've been down to South America in the 80s. I spent a lot of time down there. All right. Those people work very hard every day to just stay alive. Okay. I don't blame them for coming here. Okay. Everybody wants to come to the big PX. And with that in mind, okay, I mean, they want a better life. And we were down there, engineers, building clinics, building roads, helping these countries, these third world countries, out of, to help, just to help them. Now, with that in mind, also, I don't think they do much of that anymore. We did some stuff
Charles,
in the country.
I am running out of time on this segment, so we will end it there. But coming up on Washington Journal, we've got Republican Representative Carlos Jimenez of Florida to discuss the Trump administration's immigration policies amid ongoing protests in L.A. But first, Mary McCord of the Institute for Constitutional Advocacy and Protection joins us to discuss the limits of presidential authority to deploy troops on U.S. soil. We'll be right back.
Nonfiction book lovers, C-SPAN has a number of podcasts for you. Listen to best-selling nonfiction authors and influential interviewers on the Afterwards podcast and on Q&A. Hear